Hey, Pete here for Studio Live today, and I'm really excited today because I have just launched my brand new EP.
You don't sound that excited, dude. Just quietly. Hello, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That's an unfortunate pause. Welcome to Studio Live today, and something a little bit different here today. We may or may not be learning anything because what we're going to do is go back in time, all the way back to the 6th of April 2017, which feels like a lifetime ago because this is when I released this video. A little bit about this video. It was the 29th video I ever made on the channel. I now have over 1,000, and I started the channel in February 2016. So back then I was only doing about 30 videos per year. GarageBand 2.1 had been released, so I was talking about all the cool GarageBand features like automation and some of the other cool things that we had at that time. And these are the 10 lessons learned that I mentioned. So my EP was released on the 1st of April 2017, which also happened to be my wedding anniversary. I like doing things for April Fools, and this is the video that was 6 days later, where I documented all of the different things that I went through. So why don't we jump back over to this 10 kilogram less uncovid person from 2017 and take a listen to some of these tips. We'll go through each tip, and then I'll let you know, and you can let me know if you're in the chat here live. Do you think that these still hold up? 3 years later, 3+ years later, do you think these tips are still relevant? We're about to find out. I haven't watched this in about 3 years myself, so let's jump in and take a watch of these tips. Let's go.
And what's different about this EP is that it was recorded entirely in GarageBand. So all the recording and mixing was done on my iPhone in GarageBand. And in order to
6S
celebrate,
Plus.
what I wanted to do today is go through the 10 biggest things I've learned. So 10 tips that I can give you if you're going to record a song or a EP or an album on your iPhone or your iPad. Here's the things that I've learned and some things to consider. So let's jump in with number 10.
I love that I said I'm really excited. You can hear the emotion in my voice, how excited I am. Sounds like a robot. I am very excited. I have released an EP. Take me to your leader. Let's listen to the first tip, and we'll take a look and see if it still holds up.
Undo is your friend. So with GarageBand on the iPhone, it's very easy to accidentally knock a track and to move it somewhere where you really don't want it to be. So this little button up here, the undo button, saved me countless times and hours of work. So if you do move something around and do something wrong, just grab your undo and get it fixed up.
Yep, I still use undo a heap. Undo and redo, in fact. So I did videos after this about undo and redo. They are probably the most common buttons that I press, because if you're using GarageBand, you'll probably know that when you're moving things around, you can sometimes accidentally move things around without even really realizing it. So a little bit about the tech behind this video. I used to shoot the video of the screen by just putting it directly above the screen and shooting downwards using an iPhone 4S onto, now this looks like it's my iPhone 6S Plus at the moment, and I also had an iPhone 5S. So my studio for Studio Live today was all iPhone based, starting with an iPhone 4S, which is why the video quality is a little bit less than stellar. So there's tip number one for you, is undo, and yes, still one that I use a lot these days. Let's say g'day to the folks who are here live, because there's some wonderful people who are here going to share in some of the joy of looking back at Pete from 2017. Desolate Morning, Tono is here. We've got 1,000 watts. Metallion 58 is here. Benedict Stewart, hello to you. Tom Rochelle, hello to you. SM Borthwick, hi, hope you are doing well. I've said g'day to 1,000 watts. Scott is here. We've got Jade Starr is here. Jade is doing an interview. If you're here live, Jade's got an interview show coming up with Mike from Creative Source, one of my favorite people of all time. So stay tuned for that one. We have, I've lost my mojo. Quaver, hello to you. We got Bubba here, dropping in for a midweek hello. We've got For Hollies, Fallen is here. DAMIAN R. Michael Cope. So glad you do this. Well, I'm glad I do it too. I like doing things like this because they require very little preparation. Just quietly. Russ is here. We've got Ian. Oh yeah. Coming down the list. Hello to X Critical. Sorry, there's so many folks here, but I don't want to miss out on anyone. I think I've said g'day to everyone. Stu Cash has dropped on in. Hello to you. If I've missed you, Sion is here. If I've missed you, I'm sorry. Let's continue on. And we've got, so Scott said didn't even realize redo. Yeah, if you tap and hold on the undo button, it turns into a redo button. So that's pretty cool. And hello to Gary as well. Metallion says still true. Me and my big fingers, and just moving those things around. It's just so easy to do, isn't it? With undo. And Jade says undo will always be your best friend. All right, we've got another 9 tips to get through, so we better crack on. Let's jump over to 2017, Pete, and see what he's got to say with tip number dos.
Number 9. There
9.
is no easy way to de-ess a vocal. So when you're recording, one of the most important things is to get your vocals right at the source. So make sure that when you're recording, you're keeping your syllables down, that you're using a pop filter, and that you're not singing too close or directly into a microphone, because you can use all sorts of fancy compression and things, which I've tried to do on my EP. But yeah, getting it right the very first time when you're recording on the microphone is going to be the easiest way to keep your vocals sounding clean, and keep those pops and S sounds from making your mix sound a bit crazy. Number 8.
Yeah, okay. By the way, my editing back then, like, did it really need to take me like over a minute to just say, don't get up on the mic so much. Watch your S's and your P's. But yeah, again, this isn't going to be me to. There's a few reasons I wanted to show this. One is to see what these tips were and if I still actually agree with them. This one I do as well. You definitely want to watch your microphone technique, your input gain, your syllabants. Getting it right at the source is so much easier. There are actually DSs. So since then, Espresso by Clevgrand has been released, and I've probably become better at using EQ. LRC5 EQ has been released, which makes de-essing a lot easier because you can do notch filtering at the top end of your EQ. You don't just have to rely on that 3-band visual EQ to get things done. So, yeah, I definitely agree with this one. The other reason I wanted to watch this is to sort of show, not to laugh and to poke fun, but to show that it's you can start. This is me 29 videos in, and this is me starting. And I like to show these things. I'm actually going to do another video where I show my very first ever video, because it's just fun and interesting to see where you've come from. This is why I say start documenting your work, start create, record, and releasing music, because you'll be able to look back and you'll be surprised at where you were and where you've come from and where you are now and how much progress you've made. Let's see if we've got any other things. Desolate Morning says, didn't know you could redo. There you go. You learned something here today. Yep, tap and hold on your undo and it'll redo. Michael says, true, I noticed the S frequencies when I change chords. Yeah, I must admit that the song Fence Sitter from my last EP, so the EP from 3 years after this one, has some really squeaky strings. I didn't really fix them properly in the mix, and I didn't really record the guitar in the best way, and it's annoying me now. So yes, de-essing is true. Hello, Judy Free, good to have you here. Hello, Zila. Hello, Ricardo. I don't think I've said g'day to you. Metallion says, still also true. Nothing like getting it right at the source saves a lot of trouble. Sure does, doesn't it? Hey, Pete, I have a question. How do you record your voice to GarageBand? Put Pete John's vocals in the search box. There's about 10 different videos where I show how I record my vocals in GarageBand. Let's see, we got any other one? Yeah, Gary says, an ounce of prevention equals a pound of cure. Did I get that right? It sounds right. Sounds about right to me. And Ian, oh yeah, I have to leave in 30 minutes. I've been hired. So unlike Donald Trump, he says you're fired, doesn't he? Now he says you're hired. Hopefully you haven't been employed by Donald Trump. Although if you're working for the government, you may have. Let's kick on. I'm doing it backwards. So it's 10, 9. We're at tip number 8. We're counting down to the top tip, which I'm excited to find out. You ready for this top tip? Wonder what it is from 2017. Let's go with tip number 8 in the countdown.
Again, related to vocals, which is breathing. So you can remove breaths, and I'll show you in this track here how I did it, and you'll quickly see. So if I jump into this track here,
get it together,
and go to our vocal, which is our lead vocal.
Editing, Pete.
Then I've used some volume automation here, but take a look at how much work there was in this.
Oh, I would never bother doing that now.
So that's the volume automation that I put into this track, and it took a long time to do that. So that was me dropping the volume and bringing it back up after every breath that you could audibly hear. And again, if I just stepped back from the mic a bit and made sure that I wasn't breathing into the mic as much, then definitely would have sounded a lot better from the outset.
Yeah. Now, do I go on to the next tip?
Number 7.
Yeah. All right. We'll wait in there and we'll go back to number 7 in a moment. Yeah, as I cough into my microphone. So yeah, I definitely agree with that one. You can see that ridiculousness of the automation curve that we've got going on there. I do still automate vocals and remove breath sounds in that way, but probably I think at that point I'd just learnt that technique. Automation was quite new to GarageBand, and I went a little bit nuts using it all the time and too much. To now, I won't get up on the mic so much, so I won't be breathing in and out. I'll get off the mic a little bit, and that can save you a lot of time. I've become better at using noise gates, so especially the Nembrini noise gate. So the original GarageBand noise gate, it's only on or off. That doesn't really work at all. So these days, I'll use the Nembrini noise gate on vocals. Great on guitars, but really good on vocals because you can actually just open the gate a little bit, and that will sort of reduce some of those breath sounds without sounding super unnatural. So that's probably the tip that I would use these days. But yeah, there's still nothing better than automation. Automation on vocals, if you do have those big breath sounds coming into a chorus that sound bad, I would turn them down. Not off, not all the way down, but I'll turn them down somewhat. Tom says, yeah, that's a lot of automation. I know, and that was on my iPhone 6S screen. So you can imagine my little finger, my big chunky finger, trying to use all the little automation points. Wasn't super fun. Chinton said, just joined, you sound so different. Yes, I speak lower and I speak slower. So whenever I do speaking these days, because I get naturally passionate and I have a naturally sort of higher voice, a nasally voice, after 4 years of doing this channel, I've realized that I'm more understandable when I just slow down about 20%, enunciate my words a little, and a little bit lower in the register. So I won't get all Barry White on you, but yes, that is my tips. SM Borthwick, could you use the Espresso app on acoustic guitars? I feel a quick experiment coming on. Yeah, I think so. I have never tried it, but I have heard that a de-esser on those squeaky stringed acoustics can be a lot of help. Yeah, there you go. Alrighty. And Bubba says, yeah, no kidding. That was my first thought. Yeah, a little too much on there. Yeah, the de-essing string squeak, it might dull down the mix, and that's the problem because those squeak sounds are in your top end, they're in your treble register. You also don't want to remove all that nice airy sound you get from your acoustics. Same with your vocals. Sometimes you just have to put up with a bit of S if you want some nice crispy vocals. Let's continue on here. Hello, Love Buzz. I just saw you drop in there. Hello to you. Let's continue on. I think we're at 7 in the countdown. Let's take a listen. Wrong one. I've got my button over here. Let's press.
We have no mix bus or sends or ability to push audio to another
Thank
track.
goodness it's 2020.
In GarageBand.
And now
So it's just super important that you get this audio right going in, and that because any EQing you do, any effects, any reverb is going directly on that track. What it does mean is that if you're using the same tracks to record the same sort of things, duplicating the tracks is a really good idea. So an example here is if I've got this guitar sound, we'll just turn the automation off again. If I've got this guitar sound here, then I can duplicate the track, and what carries across with this track is all of my panning, my EQ settings, everything that I've done. So that's a quick and easy way to make sure that if you are using some effects and some EQ, and you're then going to record, say, a double of a vocal or a double of a guitar, then that's an easy way to actually get that done.
Oh, again, really nice edit and cut, Pete. 2017 Pete's giving me time. He's like, one day Pete will be watching these and he'll need to be able to do this. Sorry, that's a terrible pause. I'm going to come back to there. You don't need to see me creepily looking at you while we chat about this. So yeah, that's something that I still use to this day. And oh, by the way, here's the thing. I would have explained that back in the day because I just went in like, there's no mix bus, there's no send and receive, and then just went on to talk about why that's bad without actually explaining it. So hopefully I've become better at when I say a term, actually explaining it. This was before I was really, this was stuff for me basically. I was making these videos. There was only a couple of hundred people that were subscribed to the channel. I was making these videos so that I could come back and look at them and I could learn along the way. So, yeah, probably wasn't explaining things as well. But a mix bus, for those who don't know, is simply the master track. Or so the master track is your main mix bus and like sending things. But there's also things called send and receive, which are other buses. So you can set up track duplication is definitely a good friend. You can set up master buses or sends and receives. So instead of having to go in on each individual guitar track like we have here and set the reverb, set the delay, you could actually just have one delay and one reverb track and then send everything to it. It works kind of like the master delay and the master reverb in GarageBand, but it's a lot more customizable. So in things like Logic and things like Reaper that I use on the PC, we have mix buses and we have sends and receives, and it just means you don't have to go in and tweak. But the workaround that I still use to this day. I still use those track duplications just to get the different sounds. So if I've dialed in a guitar and I want to do a second guitar, of course, I'm not going to create a brand new track. I'm just going to duplicate out that track, hit record, and I've got that same settings if I've dialed in some EQ, some delay, some reverb, some compression, whatever it happens to be. I love this. So Michael, yep, thank you. And Judy Free says, I always mix the bus. I should check the timetable first. Need a rim shot ready to go for that. Righty dokie. Am I doing more streams today so I can join in on them? No, but straight after this, this one, Jade Star. Make sure you subscribe to Jade's channel. I know most of you are, but if you're new to my channel or if you're not in these streams commonly, Jade is interviewing Mike from Creative Source, who again is someone that I know well, who creates really, really cool content for home recording as well. And he's also Australian, though he doesn't sound like it because he's got a British accent, but I won't hold that against him. Let's continue on and take a look at, what are we up to? Tip number 6. Let's find out.
EQ, and you're then going to record, say, a double of a vocal
Sorry, I've gone back a bit.
double of a guitar.
This is a rehash.
It's an easy way
the
to
last
actually get that done.
Next one, please, Pete.
Number 6. Give yourself 1 or 2 bars of lead-in time, and this is something that I learnt from because I didn't do it on this very track here. So as you can see here, this has got guitars that come in at the very start of the track, and unfortunately, there's that undo button needed again. So I just slid that across. Unfortunately, the track sort of starts with a strum, and because I didn't have that lead in, the recording didn't actually kick in. So I had my four counts, 1 bar of count in, but then the recording started. So it kind of cut off the very first strum of the guitar. So a tip there, and I did it on all the other tracks except for this one for some reason, a tip there is to make sure that you give yourself 1 or 2 tracks at the start. If you don't know what that means, let me just jump into a track where I did it right. So there we go. So you can see there that there's a little bit of space there right at the start, and the actual song starts at bar number 2. So that just gives you that lead in, so that if there's an instrument that just starts or a vocal that just starts just before that first count, that it's going to sound natural and not going to sound weird and chopped off. Okay, number 5 is that...
We'll come into number 5 in a moment, and again, I just want to take that back. There you go. So yeah, that number 6, that one, this is something that I do. I must have been so disturbed by the fact that I messed up this track that I now do it. I have at least 2 bars, usually 4 bars at the start of any of my projects. If you've seen any of my songwriting series type videos, you'll know that at the start of all of my GarageBand projects, I have at least 2 bars, if not 4 bar count in. Let's just see if that holds true. I'm just going to open a random project and see if I've actually done that. No. So I've just opened this project. This is just a little test demo that I did for a tutorial. That's a little bit different, but the actual version of this one that I did, I'm almost positive that I took my own advice with my current song called 1%. Yeah, there you go. You can see that I have indeed, if we zoom on in on that one, I have indeed got that little bit at the start there, and it's 4 bars of goodness, and I start at bar 5. That's kind of my new normal with GarageBand. So that's definitely a tip that I take from myself, and I continue doing and have continued to do right up to this day, is to make sure, and especially for acoustic guitar, and especially if you've got that brum, that first strum, because you're hitting the note at the first beat, there's always going to be something that's coming in just before that first beat. So give yourself like 2 bars, at least 4 bars, and you'll be good to go. Desolate Morning, how many albums do you have, Pete? I've only released one full-length album, one album, 3 EPs, and about 12 singles at this stage. So I've been pretty busy. This was my very first release. So this is my first DistroKid release. So yes, I've been a DistroKid user for, nearly 4 years now. Well, more than 3 years at least. So this was my first EP, and then we've got other albums. Yes, cool. Scott says, good tip, need to start doing this. Yeah, it is something that I've found is really handy. Just make sure you give yourself that 2 to 4 bars, and you'll be there. You'll be good to go. Rightio, let's continue on. What are we up to, number 6 or 5 or something like that? We're getting through these tips, but it looks like we still got a long way to go. We've still got like 9 minutes of content, so I better keep playing and keep ploughing on.
That lead in, so that if there's an instrument that just starts or a vocal that just starts
Just the end of the last
just before
one.
that first count, that it's going to sound natural and not going to sound weird and chopped off. Okay, number 5 is that presets can be good, but don't be afraid to record clean. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you go in and you create a new track here in iTunes in GarageBand,
Get it together, son.
go back into our track here. So if I wanted to come down here and create a new track, and let's say I want to
Patrick?
do an instrument here, or I want to do my voice. So let's do voice. If I go into voice, what it's going to do is going to instantly give me all of these lead vocals. So it's got all of these different options here, and all of them have a lot of effects and EQ and other things going on, which can sound really good. But sometimes I actually just want to get a nice sound and then add my own EQ, my own reverb, and my own other effects. So funnily enough, it's under fun now.
Still under fun.
And clean. So that's the way to actually set a recording, whether it's a guitar or a vocal or any other instrument that you're recording through an analog source. That's the way to get a clean signal into GarageBand, so that you can then actually change the effects. And you can also, so you don't have to record it 100% clean. You can come in and start adding your effects before you record, so that if you like recording, say, your vocals with a little bit of reverb or something like that, then you can actually add that in there right from the start, and you can even do your visual EQ and that sort of thing from the outset. So that's an option there.
That's enough.
But yeah, don't just use the presets. They can be really super cool, so try them out. But if you do find that you're not getting the sound you want, then you can go back to setting your own effects on your own track. Number 4 is
Let's talk about number 4 in a moment. So from on the last tip there, by the way, hello Patrick Moonbird, who jumped on in here. Good to see you, my friend. I've missed the one that I was going to tap here. Desolate Morning, is 4 bars better than 2, and why? No, it's just more. So the reason I go 4 bars these days is if I'm playing guitar and I want to start, it gives me 4 bars of 4 count, gives me 16 beats to get my guitar on, grab my pick, get ready to rock. So yeah, 4 is better than 2 for that reason, but no other reason, as long as you got a little bit of time there. Metallion says, I always record clean and add effects afterwards, gives me more control. Yeah, so do I still do what that guy said? Sort of. What I tend to do is for vocals, I'll put either radio ready or punchy presence, depending on the type of song. But I almost always turn down the compression and turn down the drive and turn down the reverb when I'm first recording. So I don't record clean. I do tend to find I need a little compression and I need a little reverb so that I can hear my vocal back and it sounds better in the mix. But I don't use a whole lot. So I record semi-clean, I would say. Only downside is adding too much effects causes, yes, the old OP, optimizing performance. Yeah. So, you do need to be careful. So clean is cool. Never saw the clean setting. And it's weird because it is still in there. It is still in there under fun. So I don't know what they were thinking when they decided that we would come in here, you'd go in here, you'd go your vocal settings. It's not under vocals. It's not under any of your instruments. But if you come down to fun, they're like, let's see. Do you want robot, monster, bullhorn, or clean audio with no effects? Anyway. We could spend all day talking about some of the strange decisions that were made making this. All right. I imagine this opens up the effects bay. I'm not sure what that's related to. Sorry. What if it's a clean solo guitar? Yeah, you can use the clean setting, the roll clean solo guitar. Duty Free says I don't know why I do, but I tend to record clean, then merge and normalize and add effects to the normalized track. Is this crazy and unnecessary modern day Pete? It's not crazy and unnecessary. Depends on the hardware you're using, depends on your iPhone or iPad, depends on whatever works for you. Like I think that I should have said it up the start of the video, but all of these tips are just lessons. The reason I said this is lessons learned, not tips or things you must do, is that these were lessons that I learned then, and I wanted to see, have I tweaked, have I evolved, have I changed the way I do things? And this one I have changed a little bit. It really depends what you're doing and how you're playing and what's going to give the best for you. The one thing I have found over time is that on my vocals, to stay on pitch, if you're having any trouble with pitching your vocals, adding some reverb and some delay can really help. For some reason, having that reverb and delay hitting your ears a few milliseconds later actually really helps me stay on pitch. So as opposed to recording clean where you're not hearing any of those effects. So that's just been my experience in more recent times. Who am I? Where am I? I'm sorry, I'm scrolling down here. Tom Rochelle says, I tend to do it like that, even in Logic, so I can create my own effects change more easily. Yeah, you get more control, don't you? You get all those slots free. You can decide if you do want, because the problem with presets is that sometimes you just turn them on and then you realize that actually I don't want compression on that particular track, or I don't want any of that reverb. And it's easier, it seems to be harder to go back and take things off than to just have it clean and add things on. So it doesn't really matter either way, but it's worth experimenting and finding what you need to do. Uh, Bubba says, love being able to move section via the sections tab. Was unaware until Pete's enlightenment a while back. Yeah, I wonder if I cover sections. There's only 4 left. I'm sure I talk about sections because I do love me some sections because clean is so fun. Yeah, maybe it's their little bit of a play on word. Good, clean, fun. Yeah, see what they did there? Maybe. Alrighty. Patrick says, I really can't wait for the next update. Here's the thing, yeah, we're looking at all these things. This is version 2.2, I think, looking at the interface and working at the timing. What are we now? 2.3.8. So yeah, it's been a while since we've had any updates. Yeah. All right. Is there a video of what's happening in the GarageBand update? Not at the moment. Unless I've completely missed an update because I've been asleep. So is there a new update coming? I don't know. Hopefully we'll have something new. Metallion says if I want to add something while recording, I use AUV3. Yeah, and that's the other thing. You can use AUV3 plugins and record through those as well, which are just external apps. So you could download something like the Vocal Live plugins and other plugins that Jade has shown on her wonderful show in recent times. Damien says, hey Pete, what's the guitar you usually use on GarageBand? What I mean is the GarageBand guitar besides Nice Room. I don't use anything much besides Nice Room, to be honest. So you know that when you go into your audio recorder and you go to more sounds, under acoustic guitar, there's Nice Room, Dreamy Chorus, Amp Room, Dark Room, and Small Speaker. To be honest, the Nice Room sounds so nice that I just go with that, and then I'll just dial in the level of compression and the level of reverb I want based on that. Sometimes I find Nice Room has a little too much reverb. So if we come in there, you can see you've got the compressor on there and the room sound. And that room relates to, over here, relates to your track reverb that you have on there. And sometimes that's dialed in a bit too much, so I tend to turn that a little bit down on my acoustic guitars. But that's it. If I don't use Nice Room, I'll just use Clean, to be honest. And just get the room sound of my less than perfectly treated room here as well. Hello to you, Bob Beto. I called you Bob. Really thanks for your videos. You've helped me too much time. Thank you. I appreciate it. Very good. And how can we add a ukulele? Buy a ukulele and record it. Unfortunately, there is no uke. It was in my recent video where we talked about what we wanted to see in GarageBand. Ukuleles, mandolins, banjos, they all got a mention and they all were things that we wanted. Oh, sorry, we've got to get back to this guy. He's been patiently waiting, staring at the screen for the last 10 minutes. So let's jump back in. I think we're up to tip number 4 in our countdown. Let's take a look and a listen.
Is about velocity. So what do I mean by velocity? Well, if you're using a virtual instrument, it's particularly a keyboard or something like that. So again, we'll just jump back to here and we'll find a keyboard track. Get rid of all of that. So if we come back up here to my piano, so you can see there that my piano track has been recorded. Okay, so here's my piano track
More
that's been
exceptional editing,
recorded,
Pete.
and you can see that it's not exactly on the grid. I haven't quantized this because this particular track I wanted to have more of a natural sort of feel, but I recorded this track with a MIDI controller. So instead of using the actual touch screen on the phone, I actually plugged in a USB MIDI keyboard. And the reason that I recommend that, if you can get one, and you can pick them up pretty cheaply for about $50
True.
for just a 49 key or even a smaller size. The reason I recommend it is trying to get the velocity right when you're playing on the touch screen, even if you're just playing a lead track that's only one note at a time, can be really tricky. So, and coming into edit velocity afterwards is no fun. So if I wanted to, say,
not.
come in here and start editing how hard these were hit, then I have to select velocity, and for each individual note, I have to change it. So it's not a big deal for like one or two notes, but you can imagine if you are editing a piano track for an entire song, it's going to be a bit of a pain. So again, comes back to the old golden rule of get it right at the source. If you can record it clean with the right velocity and the right sort of feel, then it's going to be an awful lot easier come edit time. So number 3.
We'll talk about number 3 in just a moment. But yes, I still have that same problem, because here's the issue with GarageBand and the way it manages velocity. And Michael here says, yeah, block select. So yes, you can do your block select, but only if all of the velocities are actually the exact same. So I'll just bring up a file here, just on my phone here. So you notice here that I've got this track here, and these are all good. Now, if all of these, if we go to velocity, if they're all the same, so that one's down low. I think this one I played in on the screen, velocity, yeah, these ones seem to be about the same, are they? Maybe. So if they're all the same velocity, then yeah, you can do a little bit of this action. Tap on one, tap velocity, and then turn it up. But the problem is, if one of them is different, it won't turn them all up. So this one seems to be okay. They're all up at top velocity. Problem is though, if you had a bunch and some were already at maximum velocity and you tried to turn up, as soon as one little clip hits maximum velocity, the rest of them don't come up. So it's sort of it's a relative velocity. So you can't set them all to the same velocity if they have variable velocity going in. I know I said velocity a lot there. What I do these days is if I'm doing something like this, like a little arpeggio, is I'll just turn off the velocity completely, so they're all at the same level. That way, if I want to turn the velocity up or down, I can use that multi-select and then do it. But if you're playing something in with expression, the way you control velocity is a bit of a pain in the ass. You do need to do it individually, one by one, which is a bit of a problem. Hello, we've got Emil here. Hello to you. Good to see you here. I saw a question up further. I've got a couple of questions, in fact. This one here, about actual USB mixers. Which one would you recommend to connect to iPad or iPhone for recording live sessions in GarageBand? Blessing from Costa Rica. Pura vida, my friend. Pura vida. One of my favorite expressions, by the way. I want to go to Costa Rica sometime just so I can walk around and say Pura vida to everyone that I see. Mixers. So I use the Live Track, the Zoom Live Track L8. I don't use it for iOS, though, because it's clunky. I've never really got it working properly on my iPhone or iPad, so I use that for my PC. The mixers that I've used the Samson MixPad. That's a nice sort of entry-level mixer that works well for iOS as well. And the Yamaha MG series is the other sort of entry-level mixer. You can also look down the Behringer Q USB series mixers are also class compliant and will also work well for you. Question from SM Borthwick, unrelated to this, but have you or anyone here used Session Band? I just noticed the Jazz 2 and Ukulele apps are free right now. Yes, and Sion, I think Sion also mentioned that. And then SM Borthwick said, yeah, sorry, Sion, I missed that. Has their Ukulele and their Jazz Guitar app for free. So I think Session Band, I'm pretty sure it's one of those ones that I actually downloaded the original one way back when. Yeah, I did. So I've got Session Band Original. So you're telling me that if I have Session Band Original, I can download those for free? One moment. If that's the case, that's pretty cool. I'll download Session Band in the background here, and we'll take a look at that, because that could answer a slightly unrelated but still relevant question that we had from one of the other viewers there. I like this tip here from Bubba. Cheat by using a capo on a nylon string guitar if you don't have a uke. Yeah. Or just buy a ukulele. Like they're not expensive. Support your local music stores. Go to a music store and buy a ukulele. I've got one over there. It's my daughter's. Can I reach it? No. It's not there. Little pink ukulele that I borrow when I need ukulele sounds. It's pretty fun. Righty dokey. I'll just see if we got any other questions or comments before we get back. Yeah, so Session Band, yes, it makes simple audio loops you can then import into GarageBand. Absolutely. I'll just see. All right, I think we can move on. Cool. And so Beto says, and at the same time, I'm listening to English with your videos. I think you have a so good pronunciation. Oh, well, thank you. I was saying at the very start that I've worked on it. I used to kind of talk a bit too fast, and when I got passionate, when I got excited about things, I would just start speaking really, really quickly and saying far too many words and not really, yeah, anyway. So I've slowed down a little bit in recent, not that much. Let's get back to the video, shall we? So I think we're at to number 3 in the top 10 countdown of these tips. And by the way, if you want to see this all the way through, there's a link down in the description if you just want to watch these back to back to back. Because I'm thinking about, I just did my new EP. I'm thinking about doing a refreshed top 10 tips. Let me know if you think my current top 10 tips would be a video you'd like to see. Let's continue on here.
And we're getting into the top 3 now. So number 3 is EQ. So the EQ settings that we have here in GarageBand are a lot better now, but they are still not great. So if we jump in here and we'll go to this vocal track and we'll go to the effects and our plugins and EQ, you can see here that I can actually create an EQ curve, but the options we have here, we've only got 3 bands. You can't expand on that. And it's not really a low cut or a high cut that you can actually do here. That's or a high pass filter, and that's especially challenging for some recordings. If you do have some boominess or some bottom end, you can see here it's not technically just cutting it off when you adjust the bass. So you can push the bass right down, which I have for this vocal track and for some of the other tracks, such as the guitar track, but it's not going to completely solve your problems, and it's also going to bring down some of those low mids. Same at the high end and even in the mid range. So you've got more control than you've had before than just a standard tone knob, which is bass treble, but it's not a perfect situation. If you're used to recording in a DAW, in a digital audio workstation, then this is going to be something different that you have to get used to, and it's going to require a bit of tweaking. But the good news is that we do have EQ. You can do it track by track, and you can actually get a decent sound. Which leads me to number 2, which is...
Oh, and you're going to have to find out in a moment what number 2 is. Yeah, so Metallion says good idea to the 10 tips version 2. That'd be really cool. So all right, I'm probably going to do it because it'll be fun. I really like LRC5. Yeah. So I was just talking about EQ in that last tip number 3, and using EQ to control some of those bass frequencies and your treble frequencies. So just to give you an idea, before this version of GarageBand, we had no EQ. So visual EQ was added in version 2.2, I'm going to say, or 2.1. I've lost a little bit of my rememberingness. But yeah, it was only added then. So prior to that, we didn't have any EQ. There was like in some of your presets, you had like an EQ knob that you could just turn up or down. It was like the old bass treble knob on your old home stereo. And that was literally it. We did also have AU plugins. So something like LRC5 that I use now is so much easier because we've got 5 bands. If you're not familiar with LRC5, let's give you a quick squiz, and you should just go and download it immediately because it's free. And I'm waiting for Neon Silicon and I can't remember his name, but there's a cool dude that runs Neon Silicon. I'm waiting for him to realize that he's got the best EQ app on the market and to actually start charging for it. Maybe he needs to make, I would buy a pro version. I don't know what you could add to a pro version, but I would buy a pro version just to support, because here it is. I've already got it on the track. I have it on pretty much every track. But that's what we have now. You've got 5 bands of EQ, and you can not only move these bands up and down, but you can change the Q settings. So if you want to have a thinner, like a notch filter, or if you want to have a wider filter, you can do that. You got high cut, you got low cut, you got all the things there with LRC5. Definitely a cool one. Um, Judy Free says to learn to speak more slowly and clearly, try living in a country where English is not the native language. It's essential to be understood. Oh, sorry, you do. You live in Australia. Yeah, that's right. We speak the Queen's English. Actually, we're a bunch of convicts, so we don't speak the Queen's English. We go, "G'day, mate. How's it going? All right." I'll do an entire video in my ochre Australian accent one time, just to annoy the heck out of every single person. You are on fire with the comedy tonight. Absolutely. No, I realise that over time that whilst probably 90% of folks who watch my video are English speaking, the 10% who aren't need to be able to keep up. And I've had a few people tell me that they're learning English while learning GarageBand. The other cool thing is, if you haven't played with subtitles in YouTube, these are all automatically subtitled. And it's funny, I've gone back to some of my earlier videos and the auto subtitles don't have much luck. Whereas these days, because I make sure I enunciate, let's see if we can say enunciate. See what the subtitles do. Enunciate, enunciate, enunciate. I just wanted to see what that would look like in the subtitles. Yeah, so here's the other thing. I don't like LRC5 because I can't see the spectrum waveform like you do with Visual EQ. I thought I would miss that too. I thought I would actually miss being able to see the waveform. What I've actually found is it's kind of a little bit better because I'm not focused on that. Because the problem with seeing the spectrum, seeing the waveform, is sometimes you see something peaking and you'll just naturally turn it down, and then you'll realize that that was actually a good peak. So it doesn't necessarily mean just because something's poking out of your mix that you need to turn it down and flatten everything. So I've actually found that by even when I use Visual EQ, I turn off the spectrum analyzer. But again, that is just me. You don't do as I say. Do what works for you. Sion says I use LRC5 when collaborating, but I actually prefer Fab Filter because it's the best visual waveform. So yeah, so if you like something visual, then you can do that. Subtitles can't be used on live streams. Yeah, the replay, it processes the video. So if you're watching on the replay, the subtitles will be there. If you're watching live, you won't get them. Although, what did I see the other day? I think Facebook, someone's doing live ones. Definitely on Teams and on things like Zoom calls, they're experimenting with this live stuff. It's pretty cool. Stu Cash says, sometimes when I come out of a project and go back in, the plugins have deactivated. Is this just me? I'm not sure. I don't recall that being the case. I don't recall some deactivated plugins. Sometimes I'll get that thing where it's like the AU plugin has stopped working, and then you go in and you find it's not there, and you have to delete it off your track and then re-add it. I don't get that too often, but when you start layering up a bunch of plugins and you've got a lot of tracks, that can actually happen. Yeah, let's continue on because we've only got another 15 minutes. And then, as I've mentioned a few times now, Jade Starr interviewing Mike from Creative Source over on her channel. So hang around for that if you're here live, or if you're watching on the replay, just go check out Jade's channel anyway and watch the replay of that interview. Let's continue on here. We've got 2 to go, so let's get into these right now.
Beware the bass. So when I actually got to the end of recording my tracks, and I'd been actually recording and mixing on earbuds, so I had my headphones plugged in and I was doing my mixing right here in GarageBand. What I found was that I had a massive bass build-up. So when I exported the files and dragged them into Reaper, which is the digital audio workstation I use on my PC, then I just had a massive bass build-up. And as soon as I plugged in some decent headphones and listened through my monitor speakers, then the bass was really just completely overloaded. So if we jump in here, I'll show you why that's the case. So things like the drums, which is obviously going to provide quite a bit of bass, in the end, what I've had to do is actually come in here and turn down some of those bass and mid-range here in the EQ, and that did definitely help it out. But and then if we look in the bass as well, we come out of here and I find my bass. Oh, bonus tip, put your tracks in the same order. I didn't in this project.
Still don't.
I've got vocals, guitars, bass, drums all over the place.
Still very bad at organisation.
Put that nice template in there. So if we go into the bass here, we'll see the same things. If we go to the effects there, plugins and EQ, visual EQ. So unlike what you might do if you're mixing bass yourself, you might find a nice sort of low frequency to pull out and to really enhance the bass. What I found I had to do here was to actually reduce it. And one of the main reasons for that with the bass and the drums is that they already kind of have their own built-in sound and EQ from the virtual instrument that you're using. So when using virtual drums, they've already are quite bass heavy. So be conscious of that. And same with the bass, especially if you're using the amp simulators that come within GarageBand, they're going to be quite bassy already, depending on the adjustments and the settings that you use there. So beware the bass. Like I said, I learnt the hard way because I had to go back in and tweak the EQ of all of my low-end instruments. So beware of that and make sure that you've got a nice balance in your mix.
You've made the point, Pete. Apparently I liked to make the same point several times. Something that I'm still reasonably guilty of. So bass build up. Yeah, and Michael here says, yes, bass build up is my big problem. Absolutely. Langston says, is this when you didn't know how to screen record? Langston, this is when you couldn't screen record. So this is iOS 10. So this is before iOS 11. Screen recording only came in iOS 11 in 2018. Believe it or not. So all of my 2017 GarageBand videos are me filming the screen. And I mentioned at the start, but I used to use my old iPhone 4S to film my iPhone 5S screen. And then I think I'd maybe updated to using my 5S as the video camera to film my 6S Plus screen that we saw there. So yes, I know it's very interesting, isn't it? So the bass comment's an interesting one because yeah, I still struggle with this, and what I'd probably say these days is make sure you're referencing your mixes. Make sure that when you're mixing as early as possible, get it onto some other systems. Don't just stick on your earbuds because you are going to overhype your bass. And the problem I probably had here, what I would do these days is I tended to mix everything too hot. So I know when you start with GarageBand, everything goes to like the unity gain. And as soon as you get over about 10 tracks, if you have everything at 0 or at sort of the unity level, you're going to find that you're overcooking your mix, and it's the bass that sort of tends to creep up. So I probably wouldn't do all of that EQ move, because all I was really doing, if you look at that, I sort of turned down the EQ in 3 places. You know what that is? Turning down the volume. So I'd probably not had the epiphany and the realization that EQ is just volume. They are one and the same. EQ is just the volume at a particular frequency. So I would actually go with manage your volume levels, your overall gain sliders first before you play around with EQ, because if you're turning down a bit of everything, you're just turning down the volume. And the easiest way to get rid of some of that bass buildup is to make sure it's not overdone. Because if you think about a vocal, a guitar, a piano, a bass guitar, and drums, if all of those are at the same volume, it's the bass guitar and the drums that are going to have a heap of bass. Whereas if you bring the volume down, you're going to actually naturally get less bass and less heavy low end. That's my thoughts these days, and hopefully that helps you. Let's go. We've got number 1. We've got to get to number 1, and I'm going to do it without a drum roll and without a big rigmarole. No, I'm not. Yeah, let's jump in because I've got to get that look off that dude's face. So what was my number 1 tip from April 2017? Does it still hold up today? We're about to find out.
And the number 1 tip I have for recording any project or song or EP or album on the iPhone or iPad in GarageBand
Bring it on.
is to have plenty of space on your phone to record, and version control is super important. So make sure that you're saving and having different versions. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we come out of here, you'll notice here that these are all called Mix 6, Mix 6, Mix 6, Mix 7. So this is the 6th and 7th versions of these tracks that I actually have. And what I've done as I go along is when I reach a critical point of the song where I think, well, yeah, I want to make sure that if I make some changes here, that I can actually go back. And to do that, just hold down on this and press the plus sign here. It will duplicate the song. You'll get
A little different now in iOS 11,
like that.
but similar.
And then all you need to do is tap on it to rename it eventually.
Oh, that old iOS 10
And there you
file
go.
management.
So then if I wanted to make this mix number 7,
We get the point, Pete.
and there we go. Hit done. So now I've actually got 2 separate mixes right here on my phone, and it means that I can then keep working on mix 7, and if I do something horrendously bad, which I did on more than a couple of occasions, then it's really easy. All I need to do is go back to the previous version and restore that, and we're good to go. So I hope you got some interesting insights from this video and some tips for the next project that you're going to do on your phone. And a lot of these tips are universal across not only your iPhone or your iPad, but recording in general. And hopefully you can avoid some of those traps that I fell into when I was recording this. Thanks again for watching. Please check out down below the description. We'll have links to the EP, so if you're keen to have a listen. And over the next month, I will be deconstructing the 4 tracks on the EP as well, right here, so I can show you exactly how I created the sounds, how I recorded, how I mixed, and how I eventually released this EP. So this is Pete for Studio Live today. Have a great day.
It's funny because Studio Live Today 2017, I've since learned that you don't ever put the date stamp on your videos because people don't want to watch stuff from old times, and anything that's evergreen like that. Don't do yourself a favor. Don't date it. Don't go top tips for 2017 because as soon as it's 2018, it feels like it's out of date. So I just wanted to watch the end of that to see that. And I'd actually forgotten that I did those reviews. So apparently I've got videos on all 4 of those songs and reviews of them from back then. So go figure. Duty Free says opposite problem with bass. I edit with headphones, then on other audio systems I find it too low. Yeah, I find the ultimate test is the guitar. Sounds good there, sounds decent everywhere. Yeah, it can be the opposite way around, and depending on the headphones you have, some headphones will give you more bass, less bass, somewhere in between. So, yeah. Kind of an underwhelming tip, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, and that's the thing. So that the last tip there, the tip of make sure that you use version control. And the reason that I mentioned that is that at that point in time, I was just getting into this and I was making these mistakes. And the few people, the couple of hundred people that were watching my videos on the channel were having the same problems. And if you recall back to then, iOS 10 had much poorer version control and management of files than iOS 11, 12, and 13 have. So it was actually harder to keep things. And to this day, the most disappointing emails and comments I get are from people saying, I just did a bunch of stuff and then I lost it. And as who was it here that said, Michael said the automation glitch has me creating versions every 15 minutes. Yeah, definitely use your version control. And Metallion says, learnt the hard way. Didn't we all learn the hard way with our version control? We're watching a video of Pete, watching a video of Pete while watching the video of Pete with Pete. It's a little bit meta, isn't it? It's a little bit weird, but thank you. Thank you for being here and for watching. I thought I would finish off by playing one of the actual songs that I recorded. Now, this is the one song that made it from this into my album. So this was my 2017 EP. I then released an album in 2018 called Selfish Aware, and the last track on my EP, which is a song called Home, is actually the last track on the album, the 2018 album as well. So I thought I would jump in and we'll just play this one. We'll finish off with this playing of my tune. This was the song that I recorded, and I used the same recording. So this recording was from 2018 on the EP. Used it then again in 2018. And apparently I can't queue up my own songs well. So thank you for being here. Do jump over to Jade Starr's channel as soon as this video is over. I'll put the link in while we're listening to this. And check out her interview with Mike Enjo from Creative Source coming up right after this one. But this is my tune called Home here on Studio Live today. Let's hit the play. I've been traveling all so long, been a hard road, seeds I've sort of overgrown, but now I'm on my way home. Been a long time far away, made a few small and big mistakes, but now I'm done, and now I'm on my way home. Maybe could have seen it coming,
Lord, I know I felt some regrets. Now it's time that I start going down the road, heading back to home. So I've gone and gathered all my things, said my goodbyes, started traveling. I'll take my time, 'cause now I'm on my way home. There's a reason for everything, and now I realize that I'll be better off from here, 'cause now I'm on my way home. They say regrets are for the ages, and it's time to start the recoil. Jealousy's a wasted feeling that I'll leave behind as I'm heading for my home. Now I'm going 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 home.
Solo.
Now I'm going home. Now I'm going home. Now I'm going home.
Yes, you don't have to go home, but you probably are home. Thanks for watching, everyone. That was the actual ukulele used recording that song. So just wanted to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of that. Thanks for being here, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Look after yourself and each other. Jump over to Jade's channel now. Thank you, Michael, for the super chat right there at the end. It was the pink ukulele that did it, wasn't it? Appreciate you. Thank you, everyone. Head over to studiolivetoday.com for more. But right now, you need to jump over to Jade's channel. Check out her interview with Mike from Creative Source. I'll see you over there. Take care. Bye now.